Hey guys, welcome back to Queens of the Damned, a horror podcast. So this week we are doing another one of our battle episodes, and it was my turn to judge. So I decided to pick the topic of gore. So Nikki and Rachel had to choose the best gory movie that they could. So it's a pretty fun episode. We talk a little bit about Rob Zombie and another one of my favorite franchises. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the show.
Okay, so for my pick for gory movie, I chose House of a Thousand Corpses, which was written and directed by Rob Zombie. It came out in 2003. So there's a lot that happens in this movie. There's a lot of people that are killed in very violent ways. I don't know. His movies are something else. So this movie takes place in the 70s. It's very clearly, I'm not going to say a ripoff because it's not a ripoff, but it's a strong homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Extremely strong. Like, extremely. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so it takes place in Texas in the 70s, in this tiny town, and there's this museum there called Captain Spaulding's Museum of Monsters and Madmen. And it's a museum / gas station / chicken joint.
Disgusting.
Yeah. And so
God, I love this movie.
It really is. This movie is so weird. And so at the beginning of the movie, it's being robbed by these two guys. And all of a sudden, this like huge man wearing a clown mask comes busting in, and he's carrying like a mallet, and he starts beating this guy's face in. This is within the first like 2 minutes of this movie. He starts beating this guy's face in with the mallet, and this guy's face basically turns to pulp. And then Captain Spaulding, who's obviously the guy who runs Captain Spaulding's museum, pulls out a gun and shoots both of the guys in the face. So the movie starts with two people's faces being destroyed. So then, and that's before the credits, guys. Before the credits, two people's faces are completely turned to pulp in this movie. So after the credits, there's like these 4 teenagers that are, of course, driving on these like back Texas roads, and they stop at the gas station, and Captain Spaulding, takes them on a tour through his little museum. And they start asking this guy about this local serial killer named Dr. Satan, who was hanged, and he vanished, and nobody ever saw him again. And Captain Spaulding is kind of, like, uncomfortable about talking about Dr. Satan, but he ends up telling them how to get to the tree where Dr. Satan was hung. So, on their way to the tree, they pick up this hitchhiker, who's this young woman named Baby.
Who is Rob Zombie's wife.
Yes, who's Rob Zombie's wife, who is very beautiful, who is in all of his movies. Can she act? No. But she's very pretty, and you know what? She's married to the director, so make your money, girl. So they get a tire shot out of their truck, and a tow truck shows up with Baby, that's the hitchhiker, I think I said that, with her older brother driving, and he drives them back to their house. And at their house is the rest of their family. There's Mother Firefly, who is their mom, but she's really old. They're all really creepy. There's a 7-foot-tall giant named Tiny. He wears a mask because he's deformed. There's Grandpa Hugo, and then another guy named Otis. So they all end up having dinner with this family, which like they really would rather not because these people are clearly disgusting. And upstairs, while they're having dinner, Otis is torturing 5 women. I think they're like missing cheerleaders or something. So he's torturing them pretty graphically while people are downstairs eating. And so then the 4 teens end up being taken hostage. And they all die in various ways. So Bill is the first teenager to die. He's tortured and mutilated, and he has his head sewn onto a fish's body, and they dub him Fish Boy, and they're going to put him in the in Captain Spaulding's museum. So one of the teenagers, Denise, her father is really worried that he doesn't hear from her. So he drives out to this small town, and he ends up at the house. He and I think two police officers end up at the house, and both of the police officers are shot and killed. And Denise's father is not only shot and killed, but he is skinned, and Otis wears his skin as a costume later on in the movie. I don't even know what else happens. This movie is too much. It's too much.
Rob Zombie, I don't know, like, what goes on in his mind, but...
Me either. I don't know what's happening. Oh my god. There's so much in these movies. So, they end up deciding to do this big ritual. I don't think they ever say what the ritual is about. I think it's just like a general satanic ritual. And they dress up the 3 remaining teenagers in bunny costumes.
Okay, I'm remembering this movie now.
Yes. Yes. And they bring them into this clearing in the woods. And one of the girls, Mary, she escapes and runs away, but Baby chases her down and brutally and graphically stabs her to death in a graveyard. And it's kind of revealed that that graveyard is the hundreds of victims that this family has tortured and murdered over the years. So the remaining 2 teenagers, Denise and Jerry, are put into a coffin alive and lowered into an underground cavern. And then the coffin gets ripped open, and these demonic figures jump in and grab Jerry and pull him out. And then more show up, and they rip off Denise's bunny suit. And... oh my god, I can't. And Denise is like wandering around this cavern, and she comes upon this room, and she opens it, and inside this room are a bunch of surgery patients and Dr. Satan. And Dr. Satan is a like demon cyborg who stands there vomiting pus as he is operating on all of these people, and he's currently operating on Jerry's brain, and that seems to kill him. And then Dr. Satan's assistant, the professor, oh, there's more. Dr. Satan's assistant, the professor, shows up, and he's also a demonic cyborg, because why not? And he starts chasing Denise with this axe. But he ends up hitting like a stalactite and crushes himself to death. So Denise manages to dig to the surface and wanders off to the road, and Captain Spaulding drives by, and he picks her up, and as they drive away, Otis sits up in the back seat, and the movie ends with Denise back in Dr. Satan's lab, and he's operating on her and torturing her, and she's screaming and screaming and screaming, but of course there's no one to hear her, and that's the end of the movie. And there's a lot more that happens in this movie that I did not get into because we don't have like 6 hours. But this movie is, it's something else. I actually like the sequel to this movie better.
I think most people do.
Yeah. But it's not as gory, to it didn't work for this episode. But I think it's a better movie. But this movie I did enjoy. Like I said, it's an extreme homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I liked it. You know, the killing in it was interesting. It was definitely unique. People definitely died in ways that I'd never seen a man's head being sewn onto a fish body. And I've seen a lot of horror movies.
Wait, you haven't seen that?
No, shockingly, what? That doesn't seem to be a typical trope.
I've seen a man turned into a walrus, but no fish.
Oh my god, that movie was so stupid. I hated it.
Would that be a fair B-movie discussion? Wait, what movie is that? Tusk. Oh, I haven't seen that yet. That's that Kevin Smith movie, right?
It is.
Oh my god, I still need to see that.
I hated it. But in any case, this movie I did really like. There are a lot of unique kills. It's extremely gory, extremely graphic. This movie is not for anyone who gets queasy. It's not for the faint of heart. I would say that this is probably one of the more violent horror movies. When people talk about torture porn, I don't think of Hostel. I think of this movie.
Oh, really?
This movie to me is torture porn. There is no reason for the killing in this movie to be as graphic as it is, except they could get away with it. I'm pretty sure I read that this movie was originally rated NC-17, which does not surprise me.
What is that? I've never heard of that rating.
Oh, NC-17 is like, you cannot get in unless you're 17. So like an R-rated movie, you can get in under 17 in theory, as long as you have a parent with you.
Okay.
NC-17 means absolutely not.
Okay.
And they will enforce it. But I did not see what they did to like get it down to an R rating. So that means it was even more violent because they would have had to cut some stuff. But I did see that originally this was going to be released 3 years before it was by Universal, but Universal actually refused to release it because it was so violent. And they were just like, we can't make any money with this. We're not gonna release it.
That's funny.
That's kind of weird though, because it's like, oh, people want to see violence, right? They're gonna come to see this violent horror movie, but if it's too violent, no.
But if it's rated NC-17, it's not going to make any money. And I don't think this movie actually did make that much money. I feel like this is definitely like a cult movie.
Right, yeah. It's
definitely
not a typical Universal like horror movie that gets a lot of publicity.
It is part of the Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios, though.
I was just gonna say, like, I love the character of Dr. Satan. I've always thought he was really creepy.
He is creepy, and so many of the characters in this movie are creepy. I mean, it's well done. It's definitely, I mean, while it is an homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it takes it way further than they ever could have, or probably ever felt the need to. But it definitely is somewhat, I mean, it has some original parts to it. I mean, demonic cyborg vomiting pus. That's a new one. So yeah, this was his first movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
And I believe, as we mentioned, his wife is in this movie. I believe she's in all of his movies.
She is. Yeah. She's in Devil's Rejects. She's in 31. She's in his cartoon. She's in Lords of Salem. Like, yeah, she's in everything.
Okay, I was trying to look up and see how many movies he has directed, and I see that he directed an episode of CSI Miami.
Oh, no way.
Which just seems really,
sounds like a bad idea.
Random.
Yeah.
He just must have, like, been a fan. Because that's, like, the only TV show episode he's ever directed. Yeah, I've only seen 4 of his movies.
He has a new one coming out, or that he just announced.
I see that.
I think it's
3 from Hell.
Yes.
Thank you, IMDb. Is it starring Sherry Zombie? Oh my god, it is!
Of
She's in it.
course. Always.
Oh, this is some kind of spin-off of this movie. Because she's playing Baby Firefly in it.
Is she?
She is. How interesting.
Well, if I remember correctly, so like when 31 came out, I went to the like premiere that theaters were doing. Like, it came out before the actual movie came out in some theaters, and at the end of it, there was this long interview with Rob Zombie too, and he talked about how, like, oh my god, he's hilarious. 31, he was not that proud of, and he's really, really fine with saying that to his audience, but he was talking about a movie that he had been working on before 31, and he was just kind of messing around with 31 as he was writing it, and I have a feeling that it was this one.
Oh.
And 31 was good. I don't think it was his best. It was just kind of there. But I'm really excited about this new one because I have a feeling that he's been working on it for a while and that he's really been putting a lot into it. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I liked this movie. I liked Devil's Rejects. I liked the first half of his Halloween, and I wish that the producers had stayed out of it and let him do what he wanted to do, which was make the entire first movie like that kind of prequel with Michael Myers as a kid, because that kid who played young Mike Myers was so good.
He was great. Yeah.
So good. And then make the second movie like the remake of the first one. And I kind of wish they had let him do it, because that first part of the movie was really the best part.
I agree.
But yeah, that's my choice for gory movies. This is one of the goriest movies I have ever seen. I do want to say on the podcast, because I said it to you guys earlier, but I was going to pick Audition, but I didn't want to ruin the twist. So if you guys have not seen Audition, please watch it. It is one of the greatest horror movies ever made. Probably one of the greatest movies ever made, in my opinion. Definitely watch it. Don't look anything up about it before you watch it, though. Don't Google it. Don't get on Wikipedia.
Am I thinking of, is that like a Japanese horror film? Or am I?
It is Japanese.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Right, I'm thinking of the right one then.
Audition is on Shudder if anyone's interested in watching, or you can rent it off Amazon for $2.99, which it is worth the $2.99. It's so good. It's so good. There's a lot that I was actually going to do that were like Asian horror movies, but I didn't know if you guys could see them, so I didn't do them. But this was a good one. Anyway, back to our topic for this poor girl who's going to be editing us.
We have a topic? Oh, okay.
Go, Nikki, go.
Okay, I'm going to go. So I did the remake of Evil Dead, which was made in 2013. I think it was pretty well received, but I'm actually not sure.
Yeah, it was very well received.
And yeah, it's pretty gross. I didn't realize until just now, but Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi actually did produce it. So that makes sense why it was pretty, I think it was pretty true to the spirit of like the original film especially. It's a soft reboot if you haven't seen it. It's like kind of same situation, but there's not the same characters, and Ash isn't a character in it. But the Ash analog is actually a woman, which I think is pretty awesome. And they really try to make you think throughout that her brother is actually the Ash analog, but it's her. And you don't think that it's her at first because she does get possessed initially. She's the first one who gets possessed, but she does actually overcome it. And the plot follows these friends who are taking their friend Mia to a remote cabin to get her off of, I think it's heroin. I don't think explicitly say, but it's like something that has extreme withdrawal effects. So in the first 2 minutes of the film, before they are even introduced, this girl who is a deadite is burned alive at the stake, and they show the whole thing. And it's this girl's father who lights her on fire. They get a hold of the Necronomicon after Mia starts smelling this weird smell in the cabin, and they think it's just her withdrawal, which, like, okay, I'm not sure smelling rotting flesh is a thing that happens during withdrawal from drugs. Is it?
It is.
It is a thing?
Well,
like, I know a lot of bad stuff happens, but
I mean, they think she's hallucinating. And hallucinations can take the form of smells.
Sensory,
I mean,
like,
it's not just seeing things.
Okay, so that's valid. But so they go down into the basement and they find these cats, like, hanging, these corpses of cats hanging in the basement. And they're like, oh, okay, she was right. Something's going on there. So they are getting rid of the cats. She ends up possessed by whatever entity. Do they ever say, like, is it several different entities or is it one entity that comes into?
I think it's usually one in the Evil Dead universe. Or can there be multiple in different people? Not like multiple in one person, but like one demon in one person,
yeah,
one
I don't
demon
know.
in another.
They never explicitly make that clear. It seems like it's one demon because they all behave the same way.
I'm not sure.
But anyway, the smart guy, the like smart character gets a hold, or like the smart nerdy guy gets a hold of the Necronomicon, and he reads aloud from it, which obviously don't do that. He reminds me of Weasel from Deadpool, which really makes me laugh. But and so Mia gets possessed. They do the tree rape scene. And a lot of the camera work is very similar to the first movie, which I appreciated. It was like the like tracking shot through the forest, and it's like all crazy. I really liked that. The tree rape was super disturbing. And with her kicking the drug habit, this whole like dynamic of rationality versus insanity gets tossed around, which I like, because in a lot of horror movies like this, you want the people to believe that they're demonically possessed, and they're just, like, stupid, saying, no, it's not a demon. Well, here, there's, like, for a little bit, there's a reason for them to go, well, maybe she's not telling the truth because she's really, like, having withdrawal right now, so maybe she's, you know, something's going on. But then things get worse, like, so much worse that it's definitely not withdrawal. There's a dog in this movie, and the dog dies. So if you don't like that, like, I had to close my eyes. I didn't like it. Dog gets beaten to death with a hammer, and the brother finds it in a hole, and, like, the poor thing is still alive and everything. So then when they get Mia back after she runs away, because she's like, you're all crazy, I can't stay here, something's going on, she crashes her car, has the tree rape thing happen to her, comes back, and she turns the heat up all the way in the shower on herself until there's, like, 3rd-degree burns on her, which, if you've ever accidentally, like, had the heat spike in the shower, you just have had one little taste of that kind of pain. So I think that was a very effective thing to use. There is also a lot of vomiting in this movie, so if you don't like vomiting, probably not the movie for you. She's vomiting blood, a lot of blood, and it's chunky, so it's just disgusting. And then some people...
It's very realistic looking.
Very, yeah. And some people are still trying to say, like, oh, she's just it's withdrawal. But, I mean, she's not just vomiting blood. It's, like, projectile stream of blood. And then finally someone says, I don't think we're dealing with a freaking panic attack here. Like, I don't think this is it. Then her friend, who's a registered nurse, who's there to kind of, like, monitor her, she gets possessed. Which, I don't know why this bothers me, but she, like, pees down her leg, which really bothers me. The way they shot it, I was like, ew, gross. And then which that shouldn't have bothered me as much as the next thing that she does, which was something they showed in all the trailers. And, like, the nerdy guy, whose name I don't remember, he goes into the bathroom and hears just, like, this sound of squishy leather, like, being rubbed against with some sort of object. And it's her sawing the corner of her mouth open with a shard of glass from the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, so she's going, like, saw, like, so quick. And then, like, she's already... like, sawed so much of her face off that he slips on a piece of her cheek skin on the floor and, like, falls on it. And, dude. It sounds so squishy. It's so squishy. And then when he's battling this Olivia demon, she stabs him with a syringe, like, right under his eye. And it's, like, right under the eye, like, in there. And he pulls it out, and it just keeps coming and coming, like, this metal. And then after that, what I really thought was neat was they had him continue the movie with his eye filled with blood. Like, his eye is almost, like, entirely bloodshot, so I thought the injury was more realistic. And after this, it just becomes a shit show of, like, what's the worst, like, how can we top ourselves over and over again? So Mia licks this corner of this butcher knife. So if you were, like, chopping vegetables and you just took the knife, like, the sharp side of the blade, and licked it as hard as you could, she licks it all the way up to the top. So Mia's brother's girlfriend, she gets possessed. Like, her arm gets possessed. The logic in this movie is, like, pretty great. Yeah, right.
Well, it's
where
like,
part
it's
of
like
part of
Evil
your
Dead
hand
2,
gets possessed.
where
So you got
Ash's
it.
hand is like.
So that's very biblical, right? If the right hand offends thee, chop it off. So she chops her arm off, but it doesn't help. And someone comes into the kitchen and sees her, and she's like, I'm sorry, I had to do it. And she stands up, and this is the point where I got so queasy, and it was the only point that really, really bothered me, where, like, her arm is still hanging from, like, a sinew, just one sinew, and it, like, detaches when she stands up and falls on the floor. Oh my god. And then she's, like, trying to kill everyone, and she shoots her face full of nails with a nail gun, and then starts shooting other people. And you really have to kind of see that, because the mental depiction of it isn't enough. Pretty soon, like, it starts raining blood, and Doesn't this film have the most blood in it of any film in cinema, they claimed? Like, I doubt it, but it would if it was raining blood, right?
I was about to say,
That's kind of a cheat.
It.
I could see it. Yeah.
So they're like, oh,
I
the
can see
most
it,
blood in
for sure.
cinema. Well, like, it's a rainstorm full of blood. Like, of course it's the most blood. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think her brother, Mia's brother, eventually buries her alive to get the Deadeye out of her, because that's the only way you can do it to bring a person back. And the little plot twist was that, like, well, it's a callback, really. She had been resuscitated. She had OD'd, and they thought that she had died, and they brought her back to life. So when he buries her alive and she comes back to life after the Deadeye leaves her, that's kind of a callback to that happening. And she ends up being the last one left, and I can't even remember what happens at the end because I was just so overwhelmed by the time this happened. But does anyone remember? Like, I don't remember.
Yeah. I can't remember what the demon is called, but there's like this demon, yes, rises from the earth and is trying to kill her. And is like, I'm gonna eat your soul! And then she sticks a chainsaw into its mouth and says,
why did
eat
I not
this
write
bitch.
down eat this bitch? Because that was one of my favorite parts of the film.
I love
Oh,
that.
but only after she has to rip off her own hand.
She does have to rip off
She's
her
like
own
trapped
hand.
under a car.
Yes.
Okay,
that scene
her
is
hand trapped
disgusting.
under, like, the wheel of this vehicle, and so she just, like, yanks it out, and there's this bone sticking out, and she's got first,
gross.
It wasn't that got me, but it was her sticking the stub up into this chainsaw to hold it. Like, no way would your nerves be able to take that at that point. You would just be screaming in pain. But yeah, I really liked this movie. I thought it was great.
And then the best part is what happens during the credits.
What does happen during credits?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't Bruce Campbell in the
he's
credits?
like watching the credits end and he turns around and he just says groovy. It's so great.
I love him.
No, I really liked it. It was a horror film that got me on this really not emotional level, but like a very like gag reflex level, which is not something I've had happen in a long time. So my only complaint is that like the relationship between the characters isn't established enough for you to even care what happens to them, besides maybe the dog and Mia. But I've seen it done effectively in horror films with this plot structure where you do care about the characters while they get killed off. And it's just, it didn't really happen in this one. I don't know if that's what they were aiming for, though, really.
I loved this movie. I thought it was really great. And what I liked about it is that it did like a reboot, kind of, without like just remaking the original. And it's so different from everything else in the Evil Dead universe, because this movie's not funny. And everything else in the Evil Dead universe is funny. And this movie is definitely not funny.
No, decidedly not funny.
Like, not at all. But, I loved this movie. I thought it was really good. And I didn't feel like the violence was gratuitous in this movie, as opposed to the one that I picked. It was definitely violent, but...
Yeah, I agree. I really love it.
I felt like I didn't feel like the violence wasn't needed. So good. I loved this movie.
It's great. It's one of my favorites. That scene where Mia, like, cuts her tongue in half with a box cutter gets me every time, and I can barely even watch that half the time, because it's just absolutely disgusting. I don't cringe a lot in movies, but this one really gets to me every time I watch it.
It's gross.
It's gross.
But so well done.
It's
and
really
this was like
gross.
this guy's first movie.
Oh, it was, wasn't
director.
it?
It was also his first movie. Yeah. I wonder what he's going to do next.
That's crazy. Wait, who is it that did this? I don't even remember.
Fede Alvarez. He did Don't Breathe.
Yeah.
So that was his second
Okay.
movie. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's coming
I
out
remember that.
next. But I'm excited for whatever comes out next.
He has done a great job, obviously, so far.
Okay, well, I just found out. Apparently they are doing a new movie from the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo universe, based on the 4th book in the series called The Girl in the Spider's Web. And that's what he's doing. So those are our movies. Those are our picks.
Yep.
Miranda.
They're both so good.
Miranda. What's your choice?
See, you guys really made this hard on me because I love Rob Zombie and I love the Evil Dead movie.
Yes.
So it's a little unfair. God. I don't know. I almost think I have to go with the Evil Dead remake just because I love Rob Zombie movies and I think they're disgusting, but they don't make me cringe as much as that Evil Dead movie. You know what I mean? Like, you watch his movies and you're just like, wow. Like, I'm just disgusted. But, like, that Evil Dead movie is kind of hard to sit through sometimes.
Yeah, it is a little hard to sit through.
So
it was the only thing I could think of, so.
Well, and when we started this episode, I really thought I was going to go with House of a Thousand Corpses. But then you started talking about Evil Dead and I started remembering what it was like to watch that movie.
Yeah, it made me a little nauseated. I was just like, oh, it was just the turkey carver thing where she was just like, well, and when she said, like, I had to do it, I thought, oh, well, her arm will be gone. And of course, that's what you're supposed to think. But then she's standing up and it's just like, link, and then it just
hanging there.
Goes,
yeah.
Oh, ew. God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. It's gross.
It is
and
gross.
I love that ending scene of that movie too, where the abomination rises, like, just visually. I think it's just because of all of the blood, but visually, I think that scene is just awesome. I love it so much. And, like, even just the small things, the way that it rises from the ground, I think is visually incredible. And then also when it sinks into the ground too. I don't know why, but just those two scenes are amazing. I don't know.
Also, I think it's really ballsy to remake such an iconic, unique film with such a unique feeling to it and still, like, be able to recapture what it was all about.
Exactly. Still make it such a great movie. This is one of the few I mean, I probably would have picked Evil Dead too, so there you go. But it's definitely the better movie. But this is one of the few... But it's not even a remake. Maybe that's why it's so successful.
Yeah.
But I guess one of the few remakes / reboots that I've really loved and that I hold up there with the original. I mean, I think this goes great with the original movies.
Well, and I think a lot of it has to do with how they marketed this movie. Because they did a lot of things that audiences are usually entirely against. First of all, the remake, because they didn't really market it as a remake. They just said, Evil Dead movie. This is what you have. It's an Evil Dead movie. Do with it what you will. And so fans didn't really have an opportunity to be like, why are you remaking it? But then they also did a gender swap, which never goes down well. But it went fantastic. And I think it's because they didn't market it as female Ash.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
They just said Evil Dead movie. You know, so again, fans didn't have an opportunity to walk into the movie like, ugh, I'm angry. I'm already angry, you know?
Well, and I think it helped with the fans that Sam Raimi was involved, that he was one of the producers. I think that definitely, I remember when it came out, that gave me confidence. Because I was a little like, why would you redo The Evil Dead? Like, it's like the perfect movie. But then knowing that Sam Raimi produced it, and I think Bruce Campbell produced it too, that makes me feel more, or made me feel more confident, I guess, in the movie.
Yeah.
And just like, okay, well, you know, if they're signing off on it, then it's probably okay.
Yeah. And I don't know, because we did talk about this, like, briefly, I think, when we did our Evil Dead episode. But, like, this movie, when it came out, it was, like, 2013, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
I hadn't seen the original Evil Dead movies, but when I saw the trailers for this one, I watched them all. And they just, like, became my favorite movies almost instantly. So I had seen them before I saw the new movie, but I don't think I would have seen them if the movie hadn't come out, to be honest, because my mom, well, I don't know, I might have, but my mom, I don't know that she's really that big of a fan, and my dad doesn't like old movies, and so, I mean, you guys probably would have convinced me to watch it eventually.
The Evil Dead is an old movie?
Well, it was in the 70s, so that's over 40 years ago.
To my dad it is. My dad, like, if it came out before the 2000s, he doesn't want to watch it because he considers it old.
I was about to say the original Evil Dead movie came out like 5 years before I was born, so I don't think it's
so does that
old.
mean that Rachel's old, huh?
It came out in like 81.
Yeah, I don't consider it old, but he does. That's just how he is. So yay, thanks Evil Dead 2013 for getting me into one of my favorite franchises. Thank you guys so much for listening. We do have one more announcement before we go. We are planning on doing a giveaway. Nikki has some extra movies she's looking to get rid of, and they are great movies too. And I have 2 small things that I'm looking to give away as well. They're both horror themed. We might post some pictures or something up on our Facebook or our Twitter, just so you guys know what we're giving away. You can have an idea of what you're able to win. And all you have to do to enter the giveaway is to write us a review on iTunes. So that whole rate, review, and subscribe, we're getting serious about it now. This time you can actually win some really cool stuff. So jump on over there and write us a nice review. It really helps people find the show, so that's why we really want as many of our listeners to do it as possible. And we will probably choose the winner by the end of May. We haven't decided, but we're definitely going to give it a month or so, so listeners have as much time as they can to give us a meaningful review. So that is all we have for you guys today. Thank you again for listening, and we hope to see you again next week.